The Irish economy has basically gone into a tailspin since 2008. Income, gross national product is down about 15%. Unemployment is close to 15%. It's much higher for young people. And that's despite the fact that immigration is running at about 40,000 people per year. So you've got a lot of young people actually leaving the country. Without that, unemployment will be even higher. Investment levels have completely gone through the floor. Investment was about 48 billion per annum during the height of the boom period. It's down to about a third of that per annum now. As one commentator has remarked, capital in Ireland has basically gone on strike. The only sector that is showing any kind of dynamism at all is the pharmaceutical and computer services sector, which is dominated by foreign-owned multinational companies, mainly American companies. But that sector doesn't generate much employment because it's mainly companies declaring their profits in Ireland to avail of a very low corporate profits tax rate. So that doesn't really generate much payoff in terms of wider impact on the economy. And what's also been happening in the middle of all that macroeconomic bad news is that there has been 3 years of really severe austerity. So spending cuts and tax increases are equivalent to 4,600 euros for every Irish person over the last 3 years. That's the scale of the cutback that's already occurred. And that's going to continue this year. There are further very severe cutbacks planned for this year, or already been implemented this year, and for at least the next 3 years. And yet, in spite of all that, the national debt as conventionally measured, which is now a little bit over 140% of national income, is still going to be about 140% or more of national income at the end of this projected austerity period. So we've got massive austerity, we've got huge cuts in living standards, we've got ruined lives, we've got severe cutbacks to the most vulnerable sections of the population, and yet it's not, ostensibly at least, solving the debt problem. And in fact, the debt problem is even worse than that figure of 140% might suggest, because if you look at all the so-called contingent liabilities, debts that will fall due, that have been guaranteed by the state, a recent audit of the debt suggests that the actual total bill that will ultimately be presented for payment may be closer to 300% of Irish national income. So we've got this simply catastrophic level of debt, and we're like people who are in a boat that is sinking, and we're using cups to try and bail out the water as the boat sinks below the waves. And that begs the question, well, if this strategy is so misconceived and so counterproductive, why is it being pursued? And the reason it's being pursued is very simple. Irish banks owe enormous sums of money to European banks. For the most part, European banks want their money back, and that money has been guaranteed by the Irish state. So what this is really about is ensuring that private speculators who gambled on the bust business models of Irish banks are able to reap ill-gotten gains to which they are not entitled. And if that demands a pound of flesh from the Irish economy and the Irish citizenry, then so be it. And it's reminiscent of the famous scene in Goodfellas where the mafia take over a restaurant, and the restaurant owner is then obliged to pay a certain amount of money every month to his mafia patron. And as the voiceover narration in that film says, so the restaurant owner goes to the mafia boss and he says, "Oh, I had a bad month in terms of business." And the boss says, "Fuck you, where's my money?" And then he goes the next month and he says, "Oh, I had a fire, or the health services closed me down." And again, he's told, "Fuck you, where's my money?" And this is really what's happening to the Irish economy at the moment. It's "fuck you, where's my money?" That's what European financial institutions want. They want their money back. And if that means the pauperisation of Irish people, then so be it. At the end of the day, that's no big deal as far as the Deutsche Banks and the Banque Nationale de Paris and the other players who are involved in this are concerned. The European Central Bank is petrified about a European banking crisis. They're worried that if European banks don't get their money back, not just from Ireland, but also from Greece, Portugal, Spain, etc., then the European financial system will collapse. So they're acting as an enforcer on behalf, to continue the mafia analogy, they're acting as an enforcer on behalf of European banks. And that's really, it sounds crude and it sounds conspiratorial, but that's really what's happening here. And all the claimed stuff about sparking recovery on the periphery, reforms and so on, has really, that's all a sideshow. That has really nothing to do with the central nature of the project. If Ireland is going to get out of this crisis, if a generation is not going to be thrown on the scrap heap, which is what's happening at the moment, then it has to repudiate this debt. It has to say the guarantee that the Irish government gave in September 2008 to repay the debts of private banks is illegitimate, was based upon false information, and will not be honoured by an Irish government from here on in. This was not our debt. This was a debt incurred by private institutions. We are not paying it. We should not have to pay it, and the price of paying it is destroying Irish social life, the Irish welfare state, and it has to be simply rejected. There is no other viable path back to growth for the Irish people.